Welcome back to American Graduate Day. I'm Bryant Gumbel. During today's program, you've been hearing compelling stories about organizations and people working to improve the education experience of students in America. We have been calling them American Graduate Champions. In this half hour, we are privileged to present excerpts from 4 talented filmmakers that portray very different snapshots of the story of education in America today. Each one of these documentaries is being brought to you by public television. These enlightening films are 180 Days Hartsville, The Homestretch, All the Difference from Westmore, and Ken Burns' film, The Address.
I was born in New York, Brooklyn, New York. Then I stayed in New York about 6 or 7 years, attended first grade in New York public schools, and I can remember my brother walking me to school most of the mornings. That's about all I remember about New York. My mom wanted to do better for us, and so her and my dad moved us from New York to South Carolina. So I started here in the 2nd grade. My brother, he was 13 when we moved here, and I can remember him getting in trouble for school for simply not saying yes ma'am. It wasn't that he was disrespectful, he just said yes, because in the city we weren't taught to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. I think to some degree we have evolved, but we still have a long way to go. Hi, Mr. Mitchell. Hi, Mr. Johnson. We still have a very long way to go. During my time in school as a high school student, I believe it was in '94, the federal government came in and made us desegregate. And I was a part of that desegregation movement. And the funny thing about it is I never knew we were segregated before the desegregation movement. But I found Darlington County Schools to be very supportive and nurturing. My situation wasn't always the best situation, but I would say that the people within the school system really supported me and valued me as a person, and they invested time in me. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're here this afternoon for a special assembly. It's a very, very big deal. Give me a thumbs up if you think you made the All-A honor roll already this year. Wait a minute. We've been in school how many days? 3. And you think you made the All-A honor roll already? Yes. Teachers, what do you think? Everyone? Okay. Mr. Brown, I know you're going to tell me something differently. Mr. Brown, everyone. I had the opportunity to work in this school before I came here to be principal. First, I was the elementary curriculum facilitator, and this person was the person that was assigned to the lowest achieving schools in the district to try to bring them up to meet state standard. And West Hartsville was one of those schools that were in need. All right, first person on my list is Martin Alejo. For one thing, our test scores are not the best. Probably the biggest, most glaring thing that stood out to me was the decline in test scores from the time they left our feeder school until the time they left us and headed to middle school. They come to us prepared, and they're leaving us unprepared for middle school. That was a very glaring problem. So the question was, why and how do you fix it? Rashawn Johnson. And that takes changing the culture. That takes having high expectations. That takes realizing that every single child that walks in the door is different. I think that's everyone now. Let's give Ms. Wood's class a round of applause.
I love teaching at West Hartsville. I mean, it's just, these are the kind of kids that need us the most. But as far as the teaching question goes, it's always something that people ask teachers. And I guess it's a really hard question. It's not as simple as saying, I love kids, because obviously we love kids. Our population of students are completely different than, the population of a lot of schools. I kind of often compare our school to a small inner city school. We have the same kind of issues and problems that they have in huge cities in their inner city schools. Poverty, homelessness, low socioeconomics plays a huge part.
Ms. King has very, very high expectations for each one of you sitting here. I still don't know if I'm ready to be leader of my own school, but leadership is a funny thing. It's not about being in charge. It's about having the ability to empower others. So I quickly found out that if you can empower others, then you're ineffective, because leadership does not become a movement until you have your first follower.
I have to be my own parent. I don't need anybody to tell me to take things seriously. Loneliness is one of my worst enemies, and I wouldn't wish it not even to any enemy. We are in one of my teachers' houses. Whenever I needed somewhere to sleep or to eat or whatever I needed, she was there for me. Mr. Barrow?
Yeah, honey.
Do you have like a Spanish-English dictionary thing?
Hold on.
What I like the most about Hamlet is I felt the anger that he felt in a way. My dad had this huge problem with immigration, and he had to leave. My mom remarried pretty quick. And so I felt really betrayed by them. So I could connect that with Hamlet.
Which scene is this for?
The To Be or Not to Be soliloquy. Mr. Barrow introduced me to Shakespeare, which was life-changing for me. I had to be off of school for 3 months, so I failed most of my classes. I need to get back on track so I could be better in the future.
And then we'll see if they make sense. I am the worst grocery shopper ever. What about lasagna? Could you eat lasagna?
I'll do lasagna.
Maja, what is in the pot with the ramen noodles? Other noodles?
Yeah. She's making cake and she's making noodles. And Mom's making spaghetti. This is mine because I'm hungry.
Yeah, I know.
Here you go. You help? Okay,
You might not want to.
I always joke that if I wasn't married, then I would have an attic full of bunk beds and high school students. And that could still happen. Bobby's bending more every day. I knew that he felt like he didn't have anywhere to go. He would say, drop me off at this place. It wouldn't be the place they were living the day before. And then I started to see him circling. And so then I started circling. And I was like, he's not going home. His father is just incredibly mobile. And the parents divorced long ago. The mom is remarried and the daughter lives there. But it doesn't appear or have been offered that he lived there. When we offered room, he took it immediately. And in front of me, he called both parents. And there was no, Rocky, come here, you know. And so that was heartbreaking.
This is where I live, I guess. So
It's not fair. Do you just let somebody wither?
Live on the south side of Chicago. Anybody can tell you, it's not easy. But my particular area I live in, you know, it's full with drugs, violence.
Am I scared? Yeah, because I know that the future can be disturbed or can be messed up by one wrong decision that I make. Like with the stuff that's happening these days, like students getting killed, like a 15-year-old boy getting stumped to death, or like a grown man found in the alley. Like that stuff really scares me because I don't never want that to be me.
I'll try to stay positive just to keep my mind off the streets and the gang violence and the drugs. Just because you come from the area don't mean you got to fall into it. But it's real life.
The thing that I'm most nervous about going to college is the work. I'm really not a study guy, so with me having to study a lot more and do a lot more things, that's what I'm most nervous about.
Mark? Crime is a violation of norms that have been written into law, and that a majority of the African American males are incarcerated. We have the highest percentage of incarceration rate. That's not a good picture. That's a high.
I want to be a police officer, and I see myself with 2 kids and seeing my grandkids. The expectation for me here from the outside view is like very huge on my shoulders because I see that I have some very huge shoes to fill. And if I don't fill them shoes, I'm going to let a lot of people down, and I don't want to do that. I deal with the pressure day by day. I try not to think about all of that. I just try to think about completing this mission and accomplishing, getting my 4-year degree and going back and showing you can make it out of Inglewood, doing some of the things I did and still be successful.
It's been hard being a black man at Lake Forest College. There's not that many of us on this campus. You know, it'll take a rocket scientist to figure that out. I'm doing something that most African American men is not doing. It's excelling at a predominantly white college. 109 class about this. You can feel the vibe when I walk into the classroom, and for me only being the only African American man in the classroom, you know, the rest of the people is Caucasian, white. Now, you can just tell by the look of their eyes. They look at me like, "Oh, what the heck are you doing here? You know, why I'm in the class with you?" You can feel that vibe. You know, I'm not naive. You know, it might be some people. You know, white people say like, "Oh, wow, he's here," and you know, might be curious about me. I'm not a psychic, but regardless, I don't pay no mind to it at all. I just pay attention to my schoolwork Any classroom I go into, I always sit in the front. I always sit in the back because I'm here to focus on the professor. I never let the people who criticize me determine my destiny or my future and my purpose I have at this college.
When you're up there, if you make a mistake, right, which might happen, Annie's right there. She can give you a cue, and because she's really close to you, she can probably give you a cue that nobody else is really going to hear except you, right?
It'll be subtle, it'll be quiet.
You will remember this day, okay? You'll remember how you feel right now, maybe a little nervous, maybe really confident in preparation for tonight. So sit up for a second. Let's sit up straight. Let's soak it in. Let's take a moment and just recognize how we're feeling, get centered, get ready to launch into this really special day today, and feel really proud of what you've accomplished.
Top button's important, believe it or not.
Fourscore and 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
A new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men
are created equal.
34 of the boys at Greenwood recited that night, but not all performed the address. A handful of students, some of whom presented the year before, chose alternative speeches.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be an emperor. That is not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
We shall fight in France. We shall fight in the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight in the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure.
We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live.
It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here,
have consecrated it far above all propelled out of the tract.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here.
It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here, the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced.
It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion.
That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain.
That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.